Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to my channel. This is Wad-l Music, Sports and Media, and this is The Real Spill. Welcome back. It is so late that it is early now, so I hope you have had your extra strong coffee, like your boy. I'm your host, Will the Thrill, as always, and as you can see from my background, I have been busy retooling, touching a few things up and getting the new backgrounds and things like that in place. And it's been a busy week of sport, so I'm going to get into it for you. Um, Obviously, before I do, I'd just like to kind of tell you a little bit more about the channel. So this is for my wicked ends. So obviously you'll know me predominantly as the head of the co-head of the Scottish Falcons show, and also the head of AFN International LLC as well on YouTube and on X, all that good stuff as well. I'm also prominently featured on the Unholy Alliance, the Birdcage LLC, and a lot more besides. One time for the fan. So shout out to all the guys over in the A for putting up with your boy. This is just for all the things that the AFN umbrella does not account for. So yes, there will be a little bit of football tonight because that is at the end of the day what brought your boy to the dance. I do have a lot of stuff to get into tonight, so as I say, I'm thrilled that you can join me, and it's time to get into it for episode 6. So across the wide and wild world of sport, there's been a lot of good stuff to get into, and some things that are maybe not so good to talk about. And I'm going to start with some of the bad news now, which is an in memoriam. So former NFL defensive end / outside linebacker Alton Smith has sadly passed away. He was only 36 years old. So now to break that down a little bit for you, a lot of you will remember that Alton came into the league back in 2011. He was selected out of the Missouri Tigers. By the team that drafted him, he went on to have the predominant length of his tenure, that being the San Francisco 49ers, before also to having stints in Dallas, Vegas, and also Seattle before calling it a career. More than any of that, though, is his contribution to the world off the field. He was certainly, from all accounts and from all that I've seen, a very just and a very charitable man. And in his last few hours, some of his last deeds on this earth were actually going around his neighborhood in California as part of a homeless charity, handing out pizzas to the homeless. So a good one until the end. A sad loss to anyone who considers themselves a football fan. And now, obviously, I want to take this opportunity to say that my thoughts and prayers are with his family, his former colleagues, teammates, and coaches, his friends as well. Just a true loss to the game of football. Although, if there is one benefit that can come from it, it is this: that he has, per his own request, asked that his brain be donated to further funding into CTE research as well for athletes. So there is not a silver lining, as it is still a very tragic time, but hopefully we can get some answers from off of the back of that, which will help us in the long run to not see this type of occurrence happen again. Because as we say, it's 36 is far too young. He had so much more to give, not just from an athletic standpoint, talking about football and his time on the field and obviously some of his memories, but obviously in terms of obviously philanthropy and helping out his fellow man as well. So massively sad news. And so rest in peace to Alden Smith. As I say, prayers up that we get the answers that we need from off of this as well. So with that being said, it's time to continue down the line of football, and as I say, get into a little bit about what it was that originally brought me to the dance, and that's my Atlanta Falcons. So the team's been very, very active this last 2 days, 16th through the 18th. Just to flash that up again, so I did have some of the key dates there for you. 16th through the 18th is mandatory minicamp, which the team has now completed. So there's a lot of things that we need to be keeping our eyes and ears on in the coming days and weeks, because we are now obviously coming to the business end of pre-season, as it were. So pretty soon we will be heading into AT&T training camp in Flowery Branch. I know a lot of you will be wanting tickets, and as such, the dates are as follows. So you have your season ticket holders day on the 31st of July. Coincidentally, that's also your boy's 35th birthday. So I will be doing some sort of stream to talk about the Falcons and have a little bit of fun with y'all. So that'll be happening on the 31st of July. And then there are dates through August as well. So the 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th, 8th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 19th, and 20th will be your dates for training camp there. Now, with that being said, just to tick things back a little bit to some of the things that I saw coming out of minicamp, some of the things that I want to cover, and that's, you knew that I was talking first off about how good this core of linebackers is going to be with some of the free agents that we picked up, and also with that couple of rookies that we took during the draft. And I think that this is the standout one for me. Harold Perkins Jr. It's a name that I've said on the shows before, but I feel like he's a very dynamic side-to-side threat. He knows how to read the ball well, diagnose the play, go and break it up. He can also cover the pass as well, but predominantly with the scheme that we're running, looking at the speed of these linebackers, and especially obviously taking into account that he ran a 4.37 at the combine, that's just everything that you want in essentially that Caden Ellis replacement. I know a lot of people have been talking about Jalen Walker in that role, but having seen what I've seen in the last couple of days, I would feel that I'm inclined at this point to perhaps disagree with you. But as Coach Stefanski says, and we'll get onto that in a little bit, there are no jobs to be handed out in June. So with that being said, another thing that obviously we all have to be paying attention to is the quarterback battle. Who is going to be the guy? Is it going to be Mike Penix or is it going to be Tua Tagovailoa? Either way, I've seen a lot of good things out of Michael Penix Jr., particularly given obviously he has openly stated that he's not yet 100%. However, that with the caveat that he knows that he will be come the preseason period. So, as I say, given the state of the field in Miami, with all due respect to the Dolphins, I'm not comfortable putting him in game 3. But I do want to get somewhere down the line as to finding out who the guy is or will be, because, as I say, we need to temper our expectations, and there is every possibility that we will see both Tua and Michael during the season. So, as such, I just want to see the best man win, as obviously we like to say. I think it's going to be an extremely competitive battle, and as Coach Stefanski said during his press conference, and over his last few press conferences, in fact, he's been incredibly impressed with both these guys, with Tua's level of maturity and his rhythm on the ball. God-given ability was the words that he used. But also Michael Penix is hitting every milestone along the way in terms of his recovery as well. So with that all being said, obviously he has made the caveat of saying that there are no jobs handed out in June, which I completely understand. Yes, we do know how coach speak works, but with that being said, obviously all signs are trending that it's going to be an exciting battle come training camp. So I mean, get your tickets in now, folks, because it's going to be hotly contested. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm just envious of you guys because I would love to come over to the. I'm sure Des would as well. I'm sure Dino would as well. And obviously spend some time with y'all and get to see these Falcons in person. Because sadly, I won't be making the trip over to Madrid this season, nor will I be coming stateside just yet. Hopefully, it's something that's going to be pipeline, and we're looking into that. But obviously, for the moment, that's kind of where we stand. So I have to live vicariously through you all, and obviously kind of be a little bit of a hanger-on in that respect, so to speak. So when we're talking as well about guys that are kind of standing out to me as well from the minicamp phase, I would say that Brandon Dorlus is pretty high on my list as well. The reason for that is not just that he's coming off of a 7-sack season, but also the fact is that we've spoken a lot about the mix of youth and experience we have on this team. As such, Brandon Dorlus has kind of stepped up not in the role that he provides as a mentor to some of the guys in that front seven who are younger or who have had time off from the team, more specifically. And I'll get into what I'm talking about there in just a little minute. But yeah, Brandon Dorlus is poised to have a breakout season, I feel, particularly now that he's got some help out of Antonio Thompson out of Washington as well. And some of obviously the other depth guys that are competing in that mix as well. So it's a lot to obviously look forward to. Obviously, that's just scratching the surface as well because we've also made some roster moves. And I said to the guys in the group chat that this is refreshing to have a staff that is conscious of the trenches. Because as I say, championships are built by defense, but dynasties are built in the trenches, talking both offensively and defensively. To that end, there have been 3 roster moves made today as well by the Dirty Birds, which I'm just going to pull up for you now. So we've signed Keyshawn Banks, Devondra Maxwell, and Antoine Wells Jr. So that is 2 defensive linemen, one on the edge and one on the interior, as well as a wide receiver. We have also, off the back of that, released CJ Nunnally IV, who was one of our undrafted free agent picks coming into this year, in addition to Elijah Garcia, admittedly not a name that I'm familiar with. And in addition to that, probably the biggest and arguably the most surprising there would be wide receiver Casey Washington has also been released. I feel that the only reason that I would give to justify that would be the fact that he's not produced on the level that we wanted to. Yeah, I understand the concussion issues have been a big hand in that as well. But yeah, of the guys that we've had to release to bring these guys in from the UFL, which is something I'll go into talk to in just a little bit. Because there's been a lot of good news coming out of the UFL this season as well that obviously shows that they do have a sustainable model in place and that a lot of people have been having some fun with it as their spring alternative while the NFL's on their temporary, obviously, off-season hiatus and all that good stuff. So, with all that being said, that's kind of my initial thoughts. Although I will be taking some time to get my thoughts together for later on. I did say tomorrow evening on the chat, but it's later on this evening. So it'll be as normal around about 8:30, 8:45 at GMT for our friends in the UK. Or if you're based stateside, that would be 3:30 to 3:45 Eastern Standard Time. If you're over in the A. Because tonight we're going to be chopping it up. Myself, hopefully Des will be making his return, so the dynamo that powers this machine should be back in place with any luck. And in addition to that, we'll also have the new blood back. So I know Dino is chomping at the bit to get a lot of work done as well. So we'll be joined again by South London's finest because we're going to be chopping it up and continuing this chat in a lot more detail with another expert who we're thrilled to have on the channel. So as I say, you're going to have to pay attention to that one tomorrow, or rather, I should say, later this evening. So that'll be the Scottish Falcons and Friends episode 57 coming out to you on Atlanta Falcons Nation International, as well as the Locker Room channel, which, as we've said before, is going to be for Des and I's Wicked Ends, which are not related to the NFL. So that's going to be college football, MLB, NBA, NHL, all that good stuff, as well as the World Cup, and whatever else we can come up with to keep you guys entertained as well. And as such, and to that end, tonight's show, we're going to be thrilled to be joined by AJC's finest. So with that being said, that is the beat writer for the Falcons on behalf of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Mr. Daniel Flick. So as I say, this guy is a Falcons expert par excellence. You'll have known and seen his takes through X, and obviously, if you do read the AJC stuff online, then you'll know his work very, very well. And as I say, he's been doing his due diligence over the last few days, so we're honoured to have him on AFNI. Obviously, I'm glad and almost a little bit starstruck in a way that he's so excited to be coming on as well. And hopefully, it's going to be the start of a nice, healthy working relationship that sees us doing a lot more shows going forward together. So shout out to Daniel. We're looking forward to having you on later on this evening. to talk about these Falcons. So with that being said, then let's digress a little bit in the football vein. So let's talk about the UFL. We had mentioned some of those signings, as we say. So going across to the UFL, they have just recently had their United Bowl for 2026, which was, and as I say, it's great news for spring leagues in general, a complete sellout for the 2026 United Bowl. So I was thrilled to see that. And in a highly competitive game, I went back and I watched and rewatched, I should say, because I did have fun with it. But the final score was 27-20, with the Louisville Kings defeating the DC Defenders to become the UFL champions in what is their first and inaugural season as a team in the UFL. In addition to that, the named MVP of the United Bowl was Ian Wheeler, the Louisville running back there as well. And he put in quite a performance. So if you've not had the chance to see that game, I would recommend that you go back and watch it as well. Now, with that being said, it's time to kind of shimmy on a little bit out of the football vein, but keep the good sport talk coming. So it's time to talk some basketball now. This is my first opportunity now to talk about the NBA championships, and what more do we really need to say about the finals? There was a few statements coming in made about how the New York Knicks would struggle purely because of their lack of size. And I know you're talking here about in relation to a certain alien, who will for now remain nameless, but for a moment I found myself asking if it was New York or New Mexico, specifically Roswell, because they knew how to handle that alien. With that being said, these five guys. So with that, all that being said, there were your opponents, the San Antonio Spurs, with captain Victor Wembanyama. But it was not to be for this young team, because the New York Knicks are the NBA champions for the first time in 53 years. They defeat the Spurs by 4-1. And I feel like it was in a lot of ways not the case that New York were always the better team. I feel like in a lot of ways San Antonio gave it up. It was San Antonio's to lose rather than New York's to win. But with all that being said, I'd like to congratulate the New York Knicks. I will go on and talk a little bit about how this affects my Atlanta Hawks, and how we can get better to kind of put ourselves into this scenario next season. But with that being said, just for context, 53 years means that the last time the New York Knicks were NBA champions, the league looked a little bit something like this. So that should give you a little bit of context as to how long the team has been waiting and suffering. And if you've ever heard the close of a Scottish Falcons show before, then you'll know we know as Falcons fans what it is to suffer and what it is to really feel some pain in some kinds of ways for your team. With that being said, the finals MVP was Jalen Brunson. And again, having seen the clips and obviously watched a couple of the games in full, what surprised me was how much he was able to handle Wembanyama's length, how he was able to obviously negate that for large portions of the games. So yeah, all kudos to Jalen Brunson for that as well. And when it pertains to the Atlanta Hawks, there are a couple of ways that I believe we can put ourselves in the position to compete for an NBA title next season. As I know it's also been a long time in Atlanta, but I feel like we are another young team that's on the mix. In the mix, I should say, because I don't feel like New York has necessarily enough to get straight back next season. I don't think they're going to repeat in any way. I feel the Spurs are maybe too young to get back there as well. So I feel like two new teams will make the will make the finals next season. And with that being said, I hope the Hawks are one of them. And I feel like some of the ways that you can do that, we need to shore up with going in the first round with one of the proven 7-footers. We need a true big man in there who's going to be dominating, physical, and controlling the pace as well. And I feel like with our second round pick, you couldn't do worse than bringing in another man who is competent at shooting from three. So I feel like with that being said, obviously in terms of depth, obviously the draft coming up very, very soon, literally in the next week. So it's going to be fun to see what happens. I'll be keeping my eyes on the Barclays Centre to see what the Hawks can do. But for me, that's kind of some of the ways that you can look to improve. So on to the next portion, and it's a little bit of baseball now. Because Des has been, as I say, nipping my box, as we would say in Scotland, to kind of get into a bit more of the baseball content. So as such, I've been paying attention to the College World Series. Specifically, as you guys know, when it comes to college sports, I am a Texas Longhorns fan. And there's been some good news and some bad news for the University of Texas this weekend. And also for them Georgia Bulldogs, if you are that way inclined. Because the College World Series in Omaha, the Longhorns did defeat the Alabama Crimson Tide. But the reason why we had to play the Alabama Crimson Tide is that we dropped our game 7-1 to Georgia. We then earned the right, after defeating Alabama, to then play Georgia again. And again, we were sent packing, this time from the playoffs as a whole, with our second defeat to those Bulldogs, this time Georgia 2, Texas nothing. So yes, the Longhorns did crash out. Although I don't often like to see a Sooner win. So shout out to my young brother Jaden from the Unholy Alliance. Best friends on an all family on a Sunday, but enemies or at least rivals on a Saturday. But it's all in love. But with that being said, the Georgia Bulldogs then went on to lose. I think it was 11-4 to the Oklahoma Sooners as well. So it's been an interesting old weekend. And I do have at least one silver lining as well from that. And that's that although the men's team didn't do quite what we wanted them to, it has been better news for our Lady Horns. And that is that they have went on to become the 2026 and therefore back-to-back Women's College World Series champions as well. So I still get to throw them horns up at least for something. I'm proud of the effort from both teams because through the regular season and through the playoff process, the Texas Longhorns men have been looking pretty nasty as well. It's just that when the playoffs came, and as I've said many times in relation to football, to be the man, you've got to be the man, to paraphrase a certain Mr. Nature Boy there. But yeah, we haven't been able to beat the man as yet, not in football, and to this point, not in men's baseball either. So that with that being said, obviously, there's always next year. I'm a realist, but I still love my teams, and that's just how it'll always be. And speaking about baseball, and struggling for that matter, it's sad in a way that I've just recently embraced the Braves because I feel now like a little bit of a jinx. But yeah, it's time to talk about it. So when it comes to the Braves, a lot has happened recently, and not all of it has been too good. So in their last 3 series, the Braves have taken series losses to the Chicago White Sox, the New York Mets, which should just not happen, and most recently, the San Francisco Giants as well. Now, with that being said, in addition, we've also lost 6 of our last 7 games. And there are some big reasons why. Mainly, it's the injury bug. We know it's not the nicest when it does come biting, but it is a 162 game season. So I feel like we need to pace ourselves just a little bit because obviously we need to worry about how talismanic players are going to perform down the stretch and if they're going to stay healthy. Namely Ronald Acuna Jr. I want him to get back because it's a repeated and re-aggravating injury. So I am obviously concerned about that. I just hope that he takes the time he needs to obviously come back. With that being said, another big injury that's going to come back to perhaps haunt us would be Spencer Strider. He's essentially been written off at least for, I think they were saying 3 or 4 months now. So it's going to put our pitching situation in a bit of jeopardy, which means I would probably say that we should be looking for another serviceable pitcher, another right-hander to replace him, obviously, and at least for the next few months, if not potentially this season, if it's worst-case scenario. So a lot of different things to kind of take into account there as well when it comes to Spencer Strider. I feel like, with that being said, we've still got a 7-8 game lead in the ANL East. So I don't think we're in too bad a position given the point of the season that we're in. We have a franchise record and wins up to this point. We are still sitting at, as I say, I think when last I saw it, we were at 18 series wins to 5 losses and 1 draw. So again, if you take the season as a whole so far, yeah, the injuries have derailed it just a little bit, but it's still early enough to where we can get things back on track. But we have to make the right moves, as I say, coming the deadline. And for me, that would be first and foremost to replace Spencer Strider. But we also need to be our stars to be stepping up. So we're going to need Mauricio Dubon to be performing. We're going to need Matt Olson to be performing as well. So we're going to need a lot of hard work out of our big name guys to kind of shore that up and make sure everything's going the right way. The next thing that I've got in mind for tonight is my honest and truthful review of they call it the biggest UFC card of all time, that being Freedom 250. I don't know if I necessarily agree, but I'll give you that. On America's centenary or birthday, if you will. So yeah, I need to get into it, and I'm going to preface this by saying that I in no way intend for this to go a political way, but inevitably it is going to go a political way. So with that being said and that out of the way, let's get into it. So yeah, Freedom 250, the UFC fight card put on at the White House. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the main card, or at least the top 2 fights of the night, in a little bit of detail. So if you don't watch the UFC, one of their biggest stars at the moment is Alex Poatan Pereira. The man is a 2-time Glory kickboxing champion. He then translated over to MMA and is a 2 weight class world champion, former champion at middleweight as well as light heavyweight. He's then stepped up again to the heavyweight weight class as well to try and be the first man the first individual all time, I should say, to hold UFC gold in 3 different weight classes. He was, however, stopped dead in that pursuit by the new interim heavyweight champion, Cyril Gane, who will now be looking to unify that with Tom Aspinall's undisputed heavyweight championship at a later date. Gane getting the job done by 2nd round knockout, and showcasing as to why the weight classes exist in a manner of speaking. I know Alex had said that he was walking around somewhere in the region of 250 plus pounds, but it was not a clean grow. I feel like he just essentially 185 was a hard cut for him. 205 not so much, but I feel like he naturally is a smaller heavyweight if he is going to be competing at that weight class. And then obviously when you're taking the strikes that these guys are dishing out, when you're the size of a Cyril Gane, someone's lights were going to go out, and it just so happened that obviously it was Pereira's time. But with that being said, shout out to Poatan, because obviously he went on to basically say, if you don't take risks, I wouldn't be here. which obviously to his credit, his accolades are there, as I've just said. So he's a risk taker, and you've got to applaud his gusto and his guts at the end of the day. So yeah, that was a fun fight. I'm looking forward to seeing what he will do, whether he's going to stay at heavyweight, whether he's going to drop back down to 205 pounds. And then of course you had the war in the main event for the lightweight title, Justin Gaethje against Ilia Topuria. And yeah, I enjoyed a lot of this match. I felt like it started off very evenly. A lot of nice exchanges. Obviously, Justin started to rock Ilia a few times. He messed up his eye. I thought at one point the body shots in the second round were really starting to mess with Justin. Because I mean, we've seen from his previous fights that Topuria has got some solid hands, and he will not be afraid to put them on you. But yeah, I mean, in the end, it was just a war of attrition, and Gaethje came out on top. Topuria was forced to quit on the doctor's stool before coming into round 4. And as such, Justin Gaethje has obviously that's a career definement now. Obviously, he's coming towards retirement. He's getting up there a little bit. Obviously the miles are on the wheels as well. He's had a lot of big, high-profile fights. So now that he has won that lightweight gold at last, is it time for him to ride off into the sunset? And again, that's something that he's kind of in the wait and see camp right now with that. So if this is the end, then it's been a hell of a ride, cowboy. So shout out to Justin Gaethje, shout out to all 4 of those guys. And now it's time to kind of get into the elephants in the room. And that was the Josh Hockett comments. Now, I, for one, was not very impressed by what this man had to say. I feel like if you are going to put on a centenary or birthday show for your nation on the White House grounds, essentially, and in the White House itself, then you want to try and portray not just the UFC, but also the USA in the best possible light that you can. You're going to do everything in your power to make it look positive. After Josh Hockett won this fight, after he TKO'd the Black Beast Derek Lewis, the first thing this man went on to do is go on the microphone and say, obviously, the common thing or the common sort of catchphrase for Alex Pereira, who we were talking about a little earlier, is Chama. He comes from a Brazilian, obviously tribal peoples, and Josh Hockett's response is, Pereira, I'm going to Chama your mama, and also that Michelle Obama, the former First Lady, is a man. Now, obviously, we've heard all the jokes online, this, that, and the other, but what it kind of makes me feel is that it was just a naive and a very childish thing to do. It's not a good look from a business standpoint for the UFC. It's not a very good representation of America and good, wholesome American sport, which at the end of the day is something that I personally enjoy, even though I myself am not an American. I feel like it is a bad look for the UFC and for the Trump presidency as well. But in addition to that, I feel like the hands have been shaken and the deals have been made over the years. As I've said before, without Donald Trump, there is no UFC. When that was referred to by Senator John McCain as human cockfighting, Donald Trump was one of the few men who still backed the sport of mixed martial arts. So obviously, as such, you will see a lot of support from Dana White, and in that, off the back of that, some certain leeway given in certain cases. But yeah, I feel like it was immature and it was not a good look, all things considered there. And while we're on the subject of of combat sport, we do have one more thing that I wanted to cover, and it's something that I spoke about in an earlier episode of The Real Spill, and that was freak show fights, if you want to call them that, or the ever-increasing influx of influencers into the world of professional and semi-professional boxing. The most latest escapade in that regard has been, again, the Furies are at it again, but this time it's not John Fury, it's his youngest son, Tommy. And he has gone one-on-one, toe-to-toe for 6 rounds. Beauty and the Beast with Eddie the Beast Hall, former world's strongest man. Now, obviously, we saw Eddie's boxing acumen before in the match against Thor Bjornsson. That didn't go to his favour, and nor did this. So the speed, the movement, and just the changes in stance and things of that nature were too much for Eddie to keep up with, especially as the fight drew on. I mean, as I say, it was only a 6-round exhibition. But yeah, add into that the fact that over the last 2 years, as Eddie says, and again, this was a bit of a comedic moment for the whole show, that although he's been training MMA for 2 years, he does apologise for the back fist that he lashed out at Fury. Now, with all that being said, we know you're friends. We know there was some a little bit of a work in that below, at least. But with that being said, I feel like a lot of the fight proved it. And the aftermath proved it even more so, because, as I say, the first thing Eddie does after the fight, congratulates Tommy Fury, goes and takes a photo with the former world champ there, Tyson Fury, as well. So it brings me back to some of the things that I've been saying before about cash grabs, and it's not what you can do, it's who you know. And obviously the Misfits promotion, you know well my issues with the Paul brothers and the way that boxing has gone. And of course, Oscar De La Hoya is obviously less guilty of that than Jake Paul, but of course he has to be considered in that mix as well. But yeah, I can't overstress enough. I feel that it's got to make sense. It's essentially turning what is a legitimate sport, if you want to use the word legitimate. And I'm a pro wrestling fan, so don't take this the way it may sound, but you're taking a legitimate sport and making it a theatre performance at the end of the day. And that's not what I'm here for. If I'm tuning in to watch boxing, or I'm tuning in to watch a mixed martial arts card, I want to see essentially a chess match played with body parts. And if you're pulling your punches, it's never gonna translate well. So that was just excuse me. That was my thoughts regarding that. And now we're getting to the tail end of, obviously, this episode, but there is one more massive thing that we have to cover before we wrap the show, and that is the FIFA 2026 World Cup. So it's time to talk some football, and not of the American variety this time. It's been a big mission statement for AFN International and for the locker room, and for Des and I personally, to build a worldwide base of creators, of panelists, guests, frequent flyers. And I feel like we're going that way in a very meaningful and a very potentially long lasting way here. So as I say, we have some specials coming up with some obviously very talented guys from other channels. So we're going to be having, as I say, Daniel Flick on later on. We're also having John Frick coming on as well from 92.9 The Game. We're also going to be joined with our countrymen from down south, the ATL Falcons UK, very soon. So we can also get the British invasion rolling well and truly. I'm also looking, as we'll get into in a little bit, for some help from our Latin friends. But that is something that I will deliver a little later on in the show when we cross that bridge. But yeah, let's talk about the World Cup then. So we are 24 games down of the 72 games of the initial group stage of the finals. And I'm going to do my best here to break down every goal scored in every game, every score, and a breakdown of the groups as well for you as they currently stand. So obviously there's more action to come tonight, but I felt like with every team now having played one game, it's a good kind of way to look over it right now. So it kicked off with the co-hosts Mexico on the 11th. In Group A, Mexico 2, South Africa 0, with Quinones and Jimenez as the two goal scorers. Also in Group A, you had South Korea beating Czechia 2-1, with Hwang and Oh scoring for the South Koreans, and the Chechen goal coming from Krejci. In Group B, you had Canada and Bosnia and Herzegovina drawing 1-1, with Larin for the Canadians and Lukic scoring for Bosnia. And you also had Qatar and Switzerland also drawing 1-1. A Muheim own goal, and then Mbolo scoring for the Swiss. You also had probably one of the biggest shocks, I would say, or at least at least for me until I looked at the world rankings, and that was Brazil 1, Morocco 1, with Vinicius Junior and Saibari being the respective goal scorers in that one. But for me, it really only came down to one result in Group C, and it was the Tartan Army of Scotland. In Group C, we faced Haiti in our first match and won 1-0, with a goal coming courtesy of Super John McGinn, as we call him, who funnily enough comes from Clydebank, which is my hometown. So it's always good to see a goal, especially when it's taken so long for us to be back in the mix at the World Cup finals. So a massive shout out to Super John McGinn, and we'll talk about the Scotland game in a little bit in a bit more detail, but I'll continue to obviously talk about these scores then. So that was Group C. Going on to Group D, you had Australia defeating Turkey 2-0 with goals from Iran Kunda and Metcalf. You also had Germany thrashing Curaçao 7-1, with goals coming from the Mecha, Schlotterbeck, 2 goals from Kai Havertz, Musiala, Brown and Undav. But there was a goal for Curaçao through Comenentia as well. In Group E as well, you had the Ivory Coast through Diallo with a 1-0 victory over Ecuador. Group F was a fun one as well. You had arguably my choice for the best game of the tournament thus far in the Netherlands to Japan 2. Van Dijk and Somerville scoring for the Dutch, while Nakamura and Kamada scored for the Japanese. So the spoils were shared in that one. And the other Group F match was the Swedes running out as 5-1 winners against Tunisia, with 2 goals from Ayari, in addition to Isaac, Gyökeres and Svanberg, and then Rekic was the goal scorer for the North African side. We then had a day where there were quite a few shocks. Spain, defending European champions, were held to a goalless draw by Cape Verde, whose keeper was named man of the match in quite a stunning performance. So all praises to Cape Verde on that one, a point each. And also then in Group G, you had Belgium drawing 1-1 with Egypt. A Hani own goal for the Belgians and Ashur scoring the Egypt goal there. We also had another draw and another 1-1 draw in Saudi Arabia and Uruguay. Al Amri scoring for the Saudi Arabians before Arroyo equalised for the Uruguayans. And then some more history was made as you had Iran 2, New Zealand 2 in Group G. Rezian and Mohebi were the goal scorers for Iran, and you also had Isaiah Just for New Zealand. He got both goals, becoming not only the first New Zealander to score 2 goals or a brace in a World Cup finals match, but also the first player for Motherwell FC who compete in the Scottish Premier Division. So a nice little shout out back home to get it done at the World Cup as well. You're then into Group I, where France defeated Senegal by 3-1, with 2 goals from Kylian Mbappe and a goal from Barcola, and a goal from Senegal through the courtesy of Mbaye. You then had Iraq 1, Norway 4, with Hussein getting the goal for Iraq, followed by 2 goals through Erling Haaland, as well as goals from Ostergaard and a Hussein own goal. So Hussein getting a goal at both ends in that one. We then saw world number ones Argentina defeating Algeria by 3-0, and that was a Lionel Messi hat-trick, becoming the first, or I should say the oldest man in history to score a World Cup hat-trick. And in addition, that is also him up to 16 World Cup goals, tying the all-time record set by Germany's Miroslav Klose as well. So it's already been some history made in this tournament, and we're looking forward to seeing it hopefully continue as well. So we also had Austria 3, Jordan 1 in Group J, with Schmidt and Al Arab own goal and Arnautovic being the goals for Austria and Olwan scoring for Jordan. We then had another massive shock just on the 17th with Portugal, world number 5, drawing with the DR Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, with the goals from Neves for the Portuguese and Wissa for the Congolese. And then it was the turn of our brothers down south, England against Croatia, 2 top 15 nations. But the game was not as close as you would expect it to be. England, although they were not as convincing as I have seen them in past games, they were convincing enough to get the job done. A brace from Harry Kane, as well as Jude Bellingham and Marcus Rashford, were more than enough to sweep away Croatia, who managed goals through Baturina and Musa to make the final score England 4, Croatia 2. We also had Ghana defeating Panama by 1-0, rounding out Group L there, with a goal coming from Yiran Kaye. And the last game up to date is the Uzbekistanis kicking off tonight against the Colombians, and it finished Colombia 3, Uzbekistan 1. Faizullayev was the goal scorer for Uzbekistan, and the goal scorers for Colombia were Munoz, Diaz, and Campas. So there we are. 24 games thus far, and there's one that I'd like to focus on in a little bit more detail before we tell you sort of what's to come. But yeah, as a Scotsman, I'm going to enjoy this moment right now because I'm going to talk to you about the group standings as it stands. So obviously, if you are new to the game of soccer, that's 3 points for a win, no points for a defeat, naturally, and if you do draw the game, it's 1 point to each team. So in Group A, you have co-hosts Mexico, top of the group with 3 points, followed closely by South Korea after their defeat of Czechia, who are in third, and South Africa at the bottom there. With Group B, you have leaders Switzerland, Canada in second, Qatar, and Bosnia and Herzegovina, although it is all of those teams were in 1-1 draws. So Group B is still pretty open at the moment. You then have my highlight, which is Group C. So Scotland are top as the only team in Group C to hold a win, 3 points there, followed by Morocco and Brazil on a point each, and Haiti bringing up the rear there. Group D with the co-hosts, the United States. Shout out to my brethren over the pond. They're on the top of the group as well, following a big 4-1 win over Paraguay, which was one of the only game I think I didn't mention earlier. So yeah, shout out to the co-hosts, and we may be talking about them again pretty soon. And then obviously, as I say, Australia in second, Turkey into third, and Paraguay on the bottom. Group E, you have Germany, who had the biggest win of the first phase. Ivory Coast in second after their 1-0 win, with Ecuador in third and Curacao on the bottom. We have Group F with Sweden on top, followed by Japan and the Netherlands, who shared a point each after their 2-2 draw. And then you have Tunisia on the bottom after their 5-1 defeat. In Group G, you've got New Zealand with their 2-2 draw, followed by Iran, and then you have Belgium and Egypt, respectively, following their 1-1 draw as well. On to Group H now, who are topped at the moment by Uruguay. Again, following a score draw versus a scoreless draw. So it goes Uruguay in first and Saudi Arabia in second, followed by Spain in third and Cape Verde in fourth. Coincidentally, that is also the biggest gap between two teams that have played thus far. So it's even more surprising that it would end up in a goalless draw, given that Spain are world rank number 3, and as I said earlier, the reigning European champions, whereas Cape Verde are ranked number 64. With that being said, we move on to Group I, where Norway top the group after that stunning display against Iraq, followed by France, then Senegal and Iraq in fourth. Then we have Group J, led by world number 1 Argentina after their 3-goal win, the Messi hat-trick, as I say. Then we have Austria after their 3-1 win, followed by Jordan and then Algeria last. We have Group K with Colombia at the top after their 3-1 win. We then have the Democratic Republic of Congo and Portugal, who, as I say, drew 1-1, therefore shared a point each. And then Uzbekistan yet to get any points as well on the bottom. And finishing out, we have Group L. So our British brothers in England are leading the way after their 4-2 win over Croatia. But I do expect to see Croatia recover, given that they are ranked number 11 in world ranking. So I do expect to see them get over the top of Ghana and Panama. But as I say, a bit of an upset as well in that game, because Ghana defeated Panama by 1-0, which, given by world rankings, would be against the run of play. So that is the group standings, and that's kind of the run of play as it has currently been at the World Cup. I hope you're all having a very good time, and we do plan on getting into some more football or soccer, if you will, if you're of a stateside persuasion. And I feel like you guys are getting with the program now. Looking at the world rankings, you're ranked higher than we are, 15 to Scotland's 38 right now. But nevertheless, what I have loved to see most about this World Cup is how much the Tartan Army have been embraced. Obviously, bringing a little bit of Glasgow vibes to Boston there with the traffic cones on the statues. You absolutely love to see that. And then in addition, we always do travel well. We always roll deep, so to speak. And there's a photo from the stadium as well. The saltires proudly displayed, and Jimmy hats as far as the eye can see. So you absolutely love to see that. But with all that being said, I do have to kind of let you know that we are not nearly done with the sports content. There's a big summer of football in both ways coming up from your guys here at AFNI. So I'm going to be heading the charge, as I promised that I would continue to do. And as such, as I said, the photos of how well the Scots have been embraced over in America has really driven home to me how much this all matters. So as such, I would say, but wait, there's more, because we are going to be bringing you not just Falcons content, baseball content, and obviously all of the Georgia, Atlanta, and American-based sports. We're also going to be turning our attention to the Scottish national team for the rest of their campaign. And we're also going to be sending it out to some of our worldwide teams to do some watch parties for the World Cup as well. So we're looking at Scotland, England right now. We're also looking at the USA, Australia, New Zealand, potentially Mexico and Canada as well, in addition to the worldwide giants. So your highly ranked teams like your France's, Argentina's, Germany's, all that good stuff. So as such, and in the spirit of that, this is going to be the first one. So on Friday, we have Scotland versus Morocco. So that's going to be kicking off at 11 p.m. GMT in the UK. So for our brothers stateside, that is going to be 6 p.m. Eastern Standard if you want to join us for that. And as I say, that's hopefully going to set a precedent for the rest of the tournament. And as I say, we're going to be having some fun with that. Just exploring the wider and wilder world of sport, as we say, because there's a lot of it out there to get through. And as I say, we want to kind of whet your appetite with that one. So we would preface that by obviously giving you a little bit of a parental advisory warning. It is a Scotland national game, so the language may get colourful, but we will try our best to at least keep it PG-13. So with that being said, there's only one more thing that I really want to kind of announce going forward, and it's a chance to shout out again one of the parties that we're going to be looking to work with going forward. In addition to that, es una oportunidad for me to trabajar en mi español también. Pero nosotros los halcones de Escocia hemos estado trabajando arduamente para expandir nuestro canal internacional para la próxima temporada. Estamos reclutando no solo panelistas de habla inglesa, sino también a nuestros hermanos y hermanos hispanohablantes. Por ello, pronto daremos la bienvenida a Erika Manrique Cáceres, fanática internacional del año de los halcones de Atlanta, a nuestro programa pequeño. Esperamos que sea solo el comienzo de una colaboración a nivel mundial, así que estén atentos. Tenemos muchas cosas buenas preparadas. So with that being said, I apologize, lo siento, pero mi español no es muy fuertemente. I did study 4 years of Spanish back at school, but I think I may have dialed the clock back 20 years there in a matter of some minutes. So shout out to the Latin wing of this international bird. We're going to be getting to work very, very soon. So we appreciate you guys for tuning in. But at the moment, as I say, I've kind of gotten through everything that I wanted to cover. So I just want to, again, give thanks, shout out, love and appreciation back to you for tuning in, for watching, for listening at any time of the night or morning you may catch me around the world. But I always want to touch base, get on, let you know what's been happening in the world of sport, and obviously just kick back, have some fun with it. If you want to get at me and keep the conversation going, I am now on Instagram as well, so you can find me at Wad-l on there. As always, you can find me on X at Wad-l as well, WADL. You can also hit me up on YouTube in between the shows as well if you can catch me on the chats, because as I say, I'm here, there, or everywhere. The Saltire Vampire. So anything that AFN are doing, you know, I'm if they drop the link, I'm there. And to that end, obviously, me and Big Will are going to be working together on some shows soon for Everything Atlanta Sports. So you can look forward to that. In addition to all the things that we've got coming from AFN side. So it's going to be a good season coming. But at the moment, I just want to, again, show love and appreciation. And thanks most of all for tuning in. So continue to like, share, subscribe, let your people know. Because here on the channel, what I've always endeavoured to do is obviously give you my thoughts and takes, try and keep it as truthful as always, and obviously deliver it Scottish style as well. So a little bit of a tongue in cheek sometimes if needs be. But I want to know what you guys think. So obviously, in addition to that, good stuff that I've listed, it's most important that you guys are happy and enjoying it and having fun with it. So if there's any guests that you want to see, if there's any special events you want us to cover, any of that good stuff, then be sure to get in touch with me through the socials or through the chats when you do get to see this, and just let me know as well. I just have one final thought before I do wrap the show, and I will leave you in the form of a video because we have one more record that was broken at this World Cup by the Tartan Army. And I'll let you close out the show to the dulcet tones of my brothers and sisters, because there were about 40,000 of us in Gillette Stadium for the game. And this was almost enough to bring a tear to a glass eye, so to speak, because we broke the record for the loudest sound ever recorded at a World Cup finals game with our national anthem. So if you've never heard... Yep, so as I say, that is the sound of around about 40,000 Scotland fans. And as I say, you can forgive us because it's been a long time. And I hope that the adventure should continue for a little bit more. But even if it should only be these 2 games, then you can bet your bottom dollar that we're going to make the most of them and have fun doing it. But in the meantime, as I say, thank you all for joining me. Until next time, keep it here, keep it Celtic. And remember, in closing, that here on Wad-l Music, Sports and Media, I will always endeavour with the real spell to give you real, unfiltered sports talk. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, the Saltire Vampire is out.